Welcome back to the Freedom and Flow podcast. I am your host, Leandria Devis, and today I am joined by three of my dearest friends and ladies that I've known for about a decade. Crazy to think that. We will be discussing this topic, living your best life. And when you hear that, thinking about is it really as fulfilling as it sounds, or is it just another way of chasing perfection, hustle, or comparison? That's what we're unpacking today in this episode. So get ready and let's dive in. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Freedom and Flow podcast. I am your host, Leandria, and I'm very happy that you're here. And as mentioned, this is a great one. This is a great podcast because I'm joined by some wonderful women, friends that I've known for, I want to say over a decade. As I get older, when I use the word decade, it's just like, really? Wow, I'm getting older here. But these ladies I've known since college, and we've just hung together from late night college talks to dance parties to motivating each other and navigating just adulthood. They've been a constant source of inspiration and accountability in my life. So happy that they're here, and I'm going to introduce them in just a second. But before we do that, I want to ask you something, all the listeners out there. Have you ever thought or heard of the phrase, live your best life? I'm sure we all have at one point, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, you use it, whoever. You've probably heard of it. It's everywhere. But is it as fulfilling as it sounds? Or is it just another way that we are trying to chase perfection, comparison under this mask of, I'm living my best life, right? And that's what we're going to talk about today in this episode. And we're ready to dive in here. So I'm going to have my friends introduce themselves, and feel free to share your name, location, and what you want the folks to know about you today. Who wants to go first?
I can go first. My name is Jamie Edwards. I'm based out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I am a brand strategist. I love Jesus. So anything that has to do with teaching, discipleship, I'm all for. And I am a wife and a mother to an incredible husband and a now 6-year-old boy.
Crazy. Beautiful. Thanks, Jamie, for being here. Who's next?
I'll go. My name is Valerie Lilly. I love Jesus as well. It informs my entire worldview. I am a mother and a wife as well to a cute little 2-year-old and a wonderful, creative, entrepreneurial husband who's also a teacher. I am a huge proponent of mental health, emotional well-being, spiritual well-being, and a lot of my work is tied to that. So counseling, workshops, a lot of different things like that. I really, really enjoy supporting people in that space.
Wonderful. So happy that you're here, Valerie. All right, Rochelle, your turn.
My turn. Okay. Hey, everyone. My name's Rochelle. I'm based out of Detroit, Michigan. And I love Jesus as well and love these girls. I think for me, I work in the building materials industry, so work with a lot of contractors. I love real estate, and so I'm trying to retire myself early with that. And I'm a creative at heart as well. Like Val's husband, I love to sing, I love to write, I love spoken word. So kind of creative and love using that for the Lord. So yeah, excited for this convo.
As you can see, these are some amazing women doing some amazing things. Y'all did a great job of just sharing about yourself and branding yourself well. So amen to that. Also point and note to hear as well, all of my friends are also followers of Christ. And so as we dive into this topic, we're not going to just pull out the Bible and have a Bible study right now. We're not going to do that. But our perspectives are based on our faith and what that means to us and how we navigate this life. So if you're not necessarily a follower of Christ or have a religion that you pertain to, this conversation is still for you, because I think we're all in our 30s pretty much. So I think if you're in that range, I think this will probably relate to you in some way. So as we dive in here, I would love to just get your hot take. Okay, living your best life. We're using this phrase, but just want to hear what it means to you, or what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear that phrase. In just like 10 seconds or less, what comes to mind when you hear that?
I think for me, the first thing that flashed in my mind was like, I think as millennials, like travel. And every time someone says that, I feel like they're at some island in some beautiful place. I think of Instagram and posting these things. It's like, oh, I'm living my best life. So it's like, that's the first thing I think that comes to mind. It's like the manicured. This is
Mm,
what a best life looks like. I definitely got to be traveling, which is such a millennial thing. I definitely got to be doing just looking good and showing the world
mm.
that it's good. Maybe not actually be good, but have a look of goodness, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the manicured piece
Mhm.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think for me, like I have this image of my mind of like the dream life, right? Like the house, the white picket fence, the family, the 2.5 kids and dog. um, so oftentimes I think, when you're young, you have this image of what life is going to be and like the perfect life. And then as we grow old, that shifts and changes. But I think oftentimes when I'm speaking to people, I recognize that we have such high expectations of
Hmm.
ourselves, right? And that's not a bad thing. I think it is great to have high expectations, but what happens when having those expectations leads to very dark emotions when you don't fulfill it? And what do we do in that in between? And are we okay with those expectations changing? Because there can be something quite beautiful in change, right? As we grow and develop. So that's what comes to mind immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with everything Jamie and Rochelle said. I forgot to mention I'm in Jersey City, by the way.
Hmm.
For me personally, it's the soft life. Like, how do I create enough fluff in my life where, I don't think the tough things in life are unavoidable. So how do I create softness around that helps make my life a little bit easier to manage? For me, it's the dream of having like a chef. So I don't have to worry about groceries or cooking every day, or having somebody who's able to clean the house once a week, or being able to find a babysitter to take care of my child so my husband and I could do either date nights, or sometimes we have events that we both serve in or have to go to. And like being able to afford, not necessarily luxury, even though that is kind of luxurious, but being able to afford the things that allow me to focus on the specific task and workflows that I can only do as Valerie. Um, so soft life with a little bit of hardness in there. That for me is what the best life feels like, on top of everything else Jamie and Rochelle shared.
Yeah, I would say maybe the common thread throughout all those things, which I kind of connect to living my best life, is spending money. That's what I kind of connect to. It is like spending money to go on trips, spending money to buy the clothes that I want, spending money to eat out and date nights 3 days a week. Like, I just essentially what I'm hearing is like spending money, which takes me to the idea of, man, I wish I had more money that I could be using so that I could be living my best life. It takes me back there. And so I think all these things are good, right? We're not saying any of these things are bad, of traveling, the soft life. Those are all nice things. And I think that sometimes it points to what you mentioned, Jamie, around how those things can be connected to some negative feelings that I think we've all felt around, man, I wish I had blank so that I could be living my best life. So that's what comes to mind when we hear living your best life. How would you say that definition for you has changed over the years? So maybe going from college to where you are now, how has that definition changed for you?
I think a lot of it for me was learning how to be flexible. Um, like, to give personal examples, after college, like I wanted to be a marriage and family therapist. So I applied to a program and I got denied. And then
Mm.
I, traveled in the summer, did some volunteering and did City Year, which was extremely stressful and severely humbling, and one of the best and darkest times of my life. And I think after several rounds of situations like that where it's like I'm hoping for this next goal, I get there to some extent or through a different way, and realizing that I'm being humbled throughout the entirety of that process, in the best way, right? Because I think those often produce the best internal growth that I couldn't have gotten otherwise. I think after rounds of that, it's not like I don't plan, right? There's, plans for finances. This year, can we try to save this much? Can we try to steer career in this way? Are there different things that I can do to grow in this way? How can I grow spiritually? But allowing a level of flexibility that takes into account all the twists and turns that life brings. So before I was super rigid, like after college, I go here and I do this. And then in 2 years, I'll be able to apply to this job and be able to do this. And that's gone out the window. Not to say I don't plan, but I allow a lot of flexibility because there's like change is inevitable. So that has helped me tremendously so that there are certain hopes I don't put so much stock in because when the disappointment comes, I find myself in a dark hole.
Mhm.
So to prevent that, is not saying we don't plan, but allow the flexibility and allow yourself the ability to grow in having strength in being flexible in your thinking and feeling so that you're able to manage some of the challenges that come with achieving your goals as well because
Yeah,
it looks different.
absolutely.
I
I
oh,
agree with Val. As you can tell, Valerie is a mental health professional, right? Such a blessing to be here with you ladies. But very similar to Val, like I recognize the rigidity, like how rigid my mindset was in college, right? There was this expectation. And I think oftentimes that comes from our background, right? I'm Caribbean, I'm Haitian American. And so having two immigrant parents who basically instilled in me doctor, lawyer, engineer, that is essentially what you're going to do and be. And I wasn't really the kid to like go outside of those realms, right? And because I did fairly well in school, it was kind of like, oh yeah, you're smart enough to be a doctor, so that's what you're going to do. And when I got to college and everything just wasn't as easy as it normally was,
Hmm.
I really struggled with that, right? And so that really started me on my journey of figuring out, okay, what do I actually want? What do I enjoy? And to be quite frank, I didn't figure it out in college, right?
Mm.
There are a lot of other things going
True.
on. I grew spiritually. I met friends, built really deep relationships, which were great. And so, very similar to Valerie, as I continued on my trajectory, I experienced failure, right? Which in actuality was a very good thing for me. I think
Hmm.
that
Mhm.
oftentimes as human beings, we shy away from failure, right? We post the beautiful things, but we don't talk about the
Absolutely.
hard things, right?
Mhm.
Absolutely.
But the
um,
reality is the way that we relate to one another is very much so in those difficult moments, in those failures. Because
mhm,
as Val said, those are the things that grow us as human beings, right? You meet someone who hasn't gone through anything. I mean, that's very rare, but typically those individuals lack depth, right?
Mhm.
And so for
Yes.
me, very similarly, I thought, okay, I'm either going to get my PhD in public health so that I can work, for the CDC, or I'm going to be a medical doctor, right? A physician. And there was a critical point after I graduated that I believe that this was God helping me navigate those challenges, that I decided I think I should take a year off to decide what I actually want to do. And that was very helpful. It was not easy. I also did City Year with Valerie, very challenging. And from then I started, working in the public health and nonprofit sector. But ultimately, my life did not look like what I expected it to look like, right? Um, and although that was very challenging, it made me ask those very deep questions. What do you actually
mhm,
want? What do you actually love? And those challenges and those questions helped me. And to be honest, I'm still on that journey of figuring out what is the life that I want to live, right? What is the good life? But now I have a better understanding that ultimately, like Leandria, like you were saying, it's a life where I don't have to think about money, right? It's a life where I can give and be generous with my time and with my money and everything that I have. That is what living the good life is to
Good.
me. I want to be generous. And in order to do so, let's be real, we
Mhm.
we live in a world that operates with money, right?
Yep.
And so that is an essential part of it, but it's not all of it, is what I'm coming to realize.
Girl, that
Hmm.
was so good.
Better preach,
There
girl.
was, there was so many parts. I was like, yes, Jamie, preach. But for me, I would say very similar to what you guys. I had a very solid, strict way I thought my life was going to be. Okay, I thought I was going to get married at 22. I was going to have five or seven kids, which is crazy. Um, and I really thought all of this would just map out. Like I didn't think about
Mm-hmm.
any struggles. I didn't think about any choices I'd have to make. I just thought it would appear or happen. And I also had the idea, growing up as Asian as well, like I was going to be a doctor. So like I get into college, everything had been easy up till then, and then I go to college and I'm like, wait, this pre med stuff, like why am I doing this? Like, and I had to ask myself really hard questions of like, do you want this or is it what your parents have wanted for you? And to finally begin
Right.
to ask myself those questions can be a little scary. And I think that for me, how it's changed from like what I assumed the best life would be to what it is now, I think is my definition of what good is. So like to Jamie's point, like with the failures and kind of the uncomfortable things, the best things in life that have kind of launched me or made me better were things that were really hard. So for me, I moved out to Colorado because I felt like the Lord was calling me to help this church plant. I had no idea what I was going to doing. I had no idea what my job plan would be. I didn't even have a job when I moved. And so to go there and just feel very stripped of looking cool, very stripped of you have no plans. You don't know anyone here. You have to start all over with friendship. But those years, I am always digging deep from the gold of those years, but those years were hard.
Hmm. Hmm.
Those years stripped me. Those years broke my heart. Those years were just times of like, what the heck is happening in my life? I don't understand. It's not cute. It's not pretty. I'm weeping. I'm sad. I don't know what's next. What am I supposed to do with my life? So when I look back though, those were such foundational moments. So I think for me, if I think about what is my best life, again, I think I'm still on that journey as well. But I think for me, it's I'm redefining what good is. So like right now, I feel like I'm in a season where it's tough. Like I really thought I'd be married. I thought I'd have kids. I thought I'd have all these things. I'm in a different place, but yet in a good place. Like I love real estate. I love business. I just renovated my basement. I feel very proud of myself. But one thing I've been, thank you. One thing I've been like, I was literally writing this yesterday, was like, I was like, it feels uncomfortable, I think, to actually live my best life. Because I saw myself hesitating towards things that, like, hey, you finished your basement.
Wow.
Why aren't you decorating it? Why aren't you getting it ready? And I like had to pause because like I had this plan to decorate my basement. Then I ate something. I was not hungry. I ate. I watched TV. I watched a show. I was just procrastinating. I had no idea why. This is not a bad thing. This is a good thing. And as I was processing it, it made me realize it's kind of uncomfortable because to become this person, like, did I really just reach a goal of mine? Like, I really been wanting to like buy
Wow.
another house and like go to the next level. And now I'm here. Like, you were actually here, Rochelle. Like, you can live in your basement and rent up the top, or vice versa, whatever you want to do. All you got to do is get it ready. And you're at that point, and it that kind of surprised me how scared I was to walk into what is for me. Not what people have said is for me, not what I thought even is for me, but a dream
Mm.
that like I've realized real estate's a big deal for me and I'm excited about it and I love it. But how scary that is too, and how I think uncomfortable that good is, or even familiar can feel super safe going to my old ways. But if I'm gonna
Yeah.
walk in who I am, it's gonna feel very stretching, kind of to some of your guys' points you were saying. So that's something that's been literally, I was just writing about it yesterday, and I just been writing a blog about grief actually, and actually
Mm.
grieving life, even in the growth and even in the good, which is interesting to me. It's been interesting. So yeah.
So good. Like I just want to sit in that just for a bit. And just some points that you all mentioned around failure. Like how much do we value failure in this society? I do not think we value it at all because it doesn't look good. It's not cute, right? We value what looks good, what people are going to consider to be good, and that is what we put on display. wherever display look might look like for you on social media or in person. So what is fail or how do we value failure? What is good? Like what is the definition of good for each of us? I think you all share that. And then what you mentioned, Michelle, is living your best life actually uncomfortable? And I think that's a big question to ask. And if it is uncomfortable, are we willing to tap into living our best life if we know it's going to be uncomfortable? So we're going to continue to dive in here, but also just some context. We talked about some college areas here. We all went to the University of Florida. Go Gators! I say it's great to the beat. Florida game,
Go
right?
Gators.
We bleed orange and blue. Maybe not as much anymore because it's been about a
Long
decade or
time.
so. But we'll always be there. But that's how a lot of us met. And so I think in talking about college years, yeah, I think you just walk in, you realize, you think, man, high school was, it was, I mean it to UF, of course. And then you get into your college years and you're like, wow, life is starting to life. Like I'm really having to think about these deep questions that I didn't have to think about before. And very relevant to what you all shared. Um, what for me, I think has been the biggest question that's popped up is like, what is success or what is good? And I think for a long time, I defined success or good as what's happening around me. Like, what are people around me doing? Okay, they're doing those things. That means that I need to do those things to create some value in my life or to make me feel valuable. And a scenario of that was I remember this is long after I graduated from college. Like this was actually maybe a year ago. um, I was talking with this woman. She owned her own coaching organization, so I was interviewing with her to be a coach. And so she asked me, "What is your definition of success?" Like no one's ever asked me that in an interview. So when I shared, I was like, "My definition of success is getting out and doing the next thing, challenging yourself, grinding hard, doing the best you can, jumping over hurdles, get the goals done." Like that is what I guess I was just so used to saying and what I believed that I said that. She was like, "Oh, that's good. I'm going to share with you what success means to me." And she said, "Success means to me going to bed with a smile on my face. Success means
Mm.
to me being able to have dinner with my family every night.
Love
Success
that.
means to me
That's sweet.
going to the beach and just enjoying the weather." And I was just
Yes.
in there like, those are things that I want to be as defined as my success as well. But it made me realize my definition of success has been so skewed by what's happening in the world, what society is telling me. And it really had me, it was a moment where I had to really figure out what is success or what is good. And so would love to hear from you all, was there a moment in your life where you felt like me chasing my best life is actually draining me or it's very unfulfilling for me? What was maybe a moment for you, or I'm sure we've all had moments, but what was at least one moment for you where you felt like, man, I thought this was what I wanted to do, but this is not really fulfilling me at all. It's actually draining me.
Mm.
Mm.
I know it's a deep question. Take a moment.
It is.
Yeah, I think for me, um, one pivotal moment was when I became a mom.
Mm.
So all of these ladies know, but if you're listening, you don't know about my life, but I got married in 2018 and found out that I was pregnant 2 weeks later. So we had a honeymoon baby. And that was definitely not in the plan. Um but children are a blessing. And in that moment, I had to realize, okay, this is not what you would have originally planned, but this is what's happening. And very quickly, you know, things started happening. I lost my position because I wasn't willing to, just continue full time. I wanted to be there for my child. And so very quickly, our family dynamic started to change, and we were newlyweds, right? So we're still trying to figure
Mhm.
out each other. Um, and being a stay at home mom, first of all, shout out to all the stay at home moms right now. Okay.
Mhm.
The hardest thing I've ever had to do. Okay. There is no start time and there is no punch out time. Okay. So,
Yeah.
so much respect to those of you who are currently stay at home moms or you are currently transitioning out of that time. So much respect to you. So during that time, it's I'm relatively new to my professional career, still understanding who I am as a woman, as a Christian, as a wife, and now as a mother, all converging at the same time. Very challenging. The most challenging season I've yet to face in my life. And so, but it was a beautiful season because out of that difficulty, I I started recognizing, oh, I'm creative. I'm not just this really smart person, right? Which, amen, I believe that I am, but I'm creative, right? So I started designing. I started, bringing on clients to help them with their businesses and branding. And I was having fun doing it. And I was good at doing it. And I am good at doing it. And so, in that difficulty, I started realizing, oh, wait, like I'm a mother and I also have the opportunity. In that moment, I started thinking about like my future children and how I wanted them to see and think about growth and success and failure and
Mm-hmm.
challenges. I started thinking beyond me, right? For the first time in a long time. And so in that moment, like I started having fun with exploring. And let's be real, there was also necessity because I needed to make money. And so that time was very precious, and interesting and fun. So very quickly my idea of success, of what is good, began to change very rapidly. And because I was willing to go through, the different stages, like we experienced as a family a lot of like just blessings and
Mm-hmm.
doors opening, right? Like we're very fortunate that we have a production studio, Elroy Studios. And so we started doing commercial photography for businesses, which during COVID was their bread and butter, right? So we started experiencing an explosion in our business in a very good way. Um, and so very quickly we had to ask ourselves questions. I had to ask myself, like, what do you want? What do you see yourself doing? And it was very exciting. So all of those questions have led me to where I am today. And even now, I'm like, okay, I know I'm not where I necessarily want to be, or I'm at the end of my journey. It very much so feels I'm like still at the beginning.
Mm.
It's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I am not a mother at this moment, but yeah, motherhood, I think that will really help. It will really redefine things in your life, the perspectives that you have on life, and saying like, "Wow, this is how I've been seeing the world," or operating, shifting. And I love what you mentioned, Jamie, around how can I operate when I'm thinking about my future children, and what does that look like as well. So, love that.
I'll jump in. I think this is hard because I was thinking of a lot of different things, but I say I just started a new role, like in sales, but I was in marketing. So I went to grad school, got my MBA, and before I got to getting my MBA, the whole goal was not to like be in corporate forever, right? But I definitely thought I would be in it and then kind of climb the corporate ladder, if that makes sense. And in my last job, I definitely know that like I enjoy corporate and it is done really well for me. So I was in marketing, strategic marketing. I can create the strategy for things. I can make something come to life. And a lot of that was my job. But I realized every year I was burnt out. Every year
Mm.
by my birthday, I'm consistently burnt out. Part of that is a lack of sun during January and March, not gonna lie. But
Ooh.
part of that is I kept asking myself, I was like, Rochelle, like, and on all levels, what was hard was to my company, I was succeeding. I was meeting my performance reviews. I was over and beyond. People trusted me. People were behind me, but I was dying inside. I
Mm.
was really struggling. And last year was probably the hardest year of that. And I remember just like, I can't do this and I don't know what to do. And like when you're in a position where what was so hard for me was I'm in a position people envy. Like I'm in a really good corporate job. I'm getting paid really well. I have people who love me. I have people who are speaking really well of me. My manager was for me. I can go anywhere I wanted. Yet I felt very burnt out and tired
Mhm.
and like just felt like I was going like a robot. And I realized for me, I was like, oh, maybe this like corporate thing is not like end goal, which I kind of knew that, but I thought like I would at least enjoy the journey. And I've just realized I'm there to learn. I'm there to gather
Mhm.
lessons. And I think even
Yeah.
the job I'm in now, it's more flexible. So I'm like, I work from home and do different things and meet with people. But even this job, I can see the tenure is going to end. For me, I realized, oh, this is training you because you want your own business. I like freedom. I hate that I have to go somewhere a certain place. I hate that someone is telling me how to do my schedule. I hate that I have to do this when you say this because of this, or that maybe I have to compromise this because my manager says that's what I need to do. I do not like that. And so for me, I realized, oh, you really want to be an entrepreneur. I've always had a desire to retire myself early because I knew like, I'm like, I don't want to do this forever. I like
Yeah.
flexibility. Still, hoping when I get married, I can do something like Jamie, like step aside and like be at home with my kids and just have flexibility. But I think for me, I realized that taught me like, wow, like this is not like you don't actually climb the corporate ladder. You care to make money, get the money from corporate and then invest it in what you want. That's
Yeah.
what I care. That's my goal, which I was like, oh, because I thought I was going to care about the title. Like you can be a director of this. And like, I love that. And I think there's a part of me that does still like that. And it may still happen. I'm not mad at that. But I was
Mhm.
thinking about like, if I'm good at this job, this sales job, and it makes me a lot of money per month, I could do that and just keep investing so that I could end. So I could
Yeah.
finish it. So
That's
that's
true.
like that was such a shock to me. I think even this last year processing that it's like, oh, you just don't. This is just not your end goal, and so you're always going to hit a wall eventually. But if you know
Mhm.
that your end goal for you is this is a scenario to teach you how to lead, teach you how to like lead a budget, teach you how to build relationships, teach you how to start a business from scratch within a business which is safer, right, for right now until I finally do my own. So I think for me success is figuring out what I want, what I truly want, and a lot of times it's different than what I expected it to be. And then I also think it's I found success flowing in my own lane. So like
Mhm.
I feel like God has blessed me when I've done the things that only Rochelle could do, like that I do. Like, and I find that it's when God is with me, things open. In every
Yeah.
job I've been in, I feel like I don't know, like He's there, even if it's like, okay, I'm at this company for 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is. I'm there and I'm being me, and I just the to James White doors just open, and like
Mhm.
it's things that I never thought I would be in. It's industries that I never thought I would excel in. It's places that I never thought I'd be, but it's yeah, I don't know. I think my lane is the success. Like whatever I'm supposed to be doing and not shying away from and pushing in towards that. That's my lane. And doors tend to open there. They
Yeah.
and I don't know. I think about Joseph a lot. Like he like one of in the story basically Potiphar like promotes him because he says everything he puts his hand towards
Mhm.
succeeds.
That's
And
good.
he knew that God was with him. And so success. So my definition of success is me in my lane doing what God wants me to do or doing what I feel like is I'm called to this.
Mhm.
That is success. And so I'm still figuring that out because I don't always know my lane, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. So yeah.
Yeah. Mm, that's good.
Listen, I mean, freedom and flow.
Yeah.
I mean, I was about to
You know
say
what I'm
that.
saying?
I'll wait till everyone, goes. But yes, freedom
Rochelle brought
flow.
up the Bible. So I'm going to mention a Bible verse that I love that my husband reminded me of. It's in Matthew 16, where it says, "For whoever would try to save his life will lose it, but
Mm,
whoever loses his life for my sake will
that's
find
good.
it," right? And that's like the misconception about Christianity. It's like it's a bunch of rules that I have to follow so that I can, feel good with God and be saved and go to heaven. It's like, no, it's accepting Christ's sacrifice for you and then experience the freedom of what that actually is.
Mm,
Mm.
Because a lot of what we're talking about when it came to success and our definitions of it prior to being hit with life was, I don't want to say rigid, but it was created by whatever world we were in. Our parents, our culture, being Black women, being in the United States of America, capitalism, like all of these different things that we unfortunately internalize, social media. And so I know for me, big, big time periods where success changed drastically for me was one, every time I tried to hold on to certain mindsets that made me feel safe, obviously being a mental health clinician, going to therapy, learning more about who God actually created me to be, like Rochelle said. Like, who is Valerie? Valerie's extroverted. Valerie loves connecting with people. Valerie loves efficiency. Valerie
Mhm.
loves flexibility. Valerie's very highly sensitive in every way, shape, or form. Valerie's very empathetic, right? And as a Haitian woman, I grew up to say happy, mad are the good emotions. That's it, right? But when I started going to therapy, when I, got diagnosed with my mental health disorder and I recognized all of these different things that played such a huge part in how I viewed the world and myself negatively, I realized that is the bondage that I was holding on to because that was familiar, that was safe, that is what I thought would define success for me and how people would view me as a success. And as I began to let loose some of those mindsets and just live in the discomfort of exploring a different way of living, of just
Mm-hmm.
being who I am and not being ashamed of it, that's when success started to happen. Right. So my husband works full time. I'm a stay at home mom, but I also own, I guess, a nonprofit that focuses on faith and mental health. I'm the counseling director at our church because our pastor, I was working for him at the time, would have meetings, and a lot of the issues that would come up, I'm like, that requires like a couple of sessions that focus on mental health. Created a counseling mental health program at our church. Like, this is the way that I am. I'm like, if there's a problem, I want to find a solution. Can I do the solution? Let's make it happen. And I think that's what success helped me. I think that's what helped me define success is, well, I feel like by losing a lot of the things, a lot of the careers, a lot of the mindsets that I carried throughout childhood to being in the freedom of who I am, and just operating in that unashamedly has opened up opportunities for me to do work that's actually meaningful. But and freedom and flow, there's a freedom for me to be who I am and to flow in the gifting that God has given me,
Mm-hmm.
on top of the fact that God clearly has a higher opinion of myself than I do, because I never saw myself directing anything, let alone an entire nonprofit, right? And having to learn all these new things. So success for me, again, is flowing in who I am, not necessarily what the world and everybody else and social media and capitalism tried to put on me, but also learning to live in the freedom of, well, if God knows me better than I am, the positions that he puts me in is because he sees the potential. He knows what's within me that I may not have even uncovered about myself. And flowing in the freedom of that as who I am and who I can grow and continue to be. So I think,
That's good.
and again, I don't like to call them failures because at the end of the day, were they really failures or were they just bumps in life that caused us to have to change lanes because it wasn't really fitting for who we were and what the plan was in the first place for us, right? So success a lot for me was, who is Valerie? Who did God create Valerie to be actually? And what does it look like to live in freedom and flow from there?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Good.
Um, I think just applause everyone's responses, but I think it all of it just in a funny way points to the freedom and flow. Hence why I created this podcast and named it this, because I think it's so important that we find freedom in the things that will serve us and let go of the things that do not. And if living your best life, if you feel like it's a lot of pursuits and trying to keep up, and I don't have this, I gotta have that, we have to let go of those ideas because it does not serve us, or those beliefs because it doesn't serve us. And flow in the things that do, when it comes to how do we define success for each other, or for ourselves, how do we define what is good for ourselves, and even the flow around the bumps in the road, because everyone here has shared a story when they experienced a bump, and that bump kind of navigated or shifted them into something more, something better, something, even this could be like more, can be, even be what you believe, around who you are and what that looks like. So I definitely hear all of you all, and thank you for sharing your stories. And along with that, kind of looking on the flip side, because I don't want to just bash living your best life, right? Is there any good in that? Is there anything that we could maybe enjoy in that saying? What do you all think about that?
I,
I mean, oh, go ahead, Rochelle. Go ahead, go
no,
ahead,
it's
go
so
ahead.
good. I think, yeah, I think there's a, so like you guys were talking about the bumps in the road, like Val, you were saying that, and how you got to flow around it. And I think you've got to remain like hopeful about life and excited about
Mm-hmm.
it. You have to find the joy. So like whatever your best life is right now, like to look at the things that you experience and you're going through. So for example, I'll give an example of myself, right? You know, I thought I'd be married, I thought all these things. I can just look at the bad side, the dark side of that, or I can see
Yeah.
the benefit of it. Right? Like I don't have kids. It's easier for me to just up and go to places. I
Yeah.
don't have to plan. I don't have to ask someone. The whole money is mine. So like I use it. I mean, there's flip sides to that I also don't have a double income. But there's like, but Lord bless me, please. Anyway, but the blessing of it is like enjoying where you're at, right? So like last year I took a trip between quitting my last job and starting the other one, and I got to go like to Switzerland. I just went on a solo trip, and
I
it
know
was
this.
yeah, I know. Sorry, I didn't post about it or anything. I haven't been posting a lot, but it was the most. And there, it's funny because there are parts of me that are like, oh, it'd be so cool to go with XYZ and to do this with a partner or to do it with just a group of friends and blah, blah, blah. And I just, but I leaned into that, and guys, the joy I had, like the amount of people that I met, that like friends, like there are people that I spent like I met two women from South Africa that we were just they're taking their PhD for free in Switzerland, and I just met them randomly, and we're on this mountain looking outside, and I'm like, what is my life like? And I just felt so excited. So there are parts of living your best life, like yes, that's a nice highlightable Instagrammable thing, but to be able to be in present in that moment was so cool to me. To be able to just like it's one of my favorite trips I've probably ever taken. And I think it was because I've done this is probably my third solo trip, but I think it was because like I chose it. It was a little scary because I'm like Switzerland, like who the heck? I don't know none of the language. I've been to France and I speak a little French, you know, or someplace that speaks English and it's fine. But like this is like complete language difference. You're figuring it out, but it was beautiful and to navigate it and figure it out. So I think you do have to pick out the things in your life that you can enjoy. Like I said about the basement, like I walk around it like, wow, you really did this. You gotta enjoy that because I feel like you'll
Yeah.
never enjoy life. You'll miss it. You're in a blessing or an answered prayer, and we move past them too quickly. So I think a part of living your best life, you do want to highlight some great stuff about your life because you need to know, hey, remember when you were wishing for this? Remember when you were saying, oh, I wish I had a job like this, or I wish I had a thing like this, or I wish I had this experience. And then you're experiencing it. And it's easy to just pass by it like, okay, next goal, and then miss the beautiful moment of you are living your best life. This is what
Yeah.
younger you have been dreaming of, or even beyond what you were dreaming of. So
So good. I gotta go to
Yeah.
Switzerland now.
Right.
I got some tips. I love that place. It's
Mm,
wonderful.
Girls trip.
Yes. Oh
Girls
my
trip.
gosh. Yeah.
Yes, please.
yes.
I think another thing, like along what Rochelle's doing. So, like, if you can go on the solo trip, redo the basement, like again, it's operating at the capacity that you have financially, mentally, emotionally, and learning to be present in it.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I do love TikTok. I'm glad they brought it back, even though I know it's going to disappear soon.
I love
And
it.
I love the TikToks where I watched one last night where a girl was like, Kindle charged, Stanley Cup filled, vanilla candle scented, sheets fresh out of the dryer, warm fuzzy PJs. And she got so excited to just sit in bed and read before
So
she went
good.
to sleep.
Mm,
Like it's like
Yes.
life, yes, these beautiful moments. Like me and my husband desperately need a vacation. Amen. Praise God. It'll come soon. But
Amen.
Destiny.
I've noticed, okay, how can I make today something to be excited
Mm-hmm.
about? I have a child. She's 2. Okay, I can't avoid being a mom. I have to accept what my portion is. I have to accept what my capacity is. Maybe I'll shut the computer off and just play with her on the floor and we'll just scream and dance and laugh and have a great time. And I find a lot of joy in that because Imani, my daughter, she's a lot of fun and she's energetic like I am. So we match each other's energy and we have a good time. I do love a good book. I love low lighting. I love watching a really great riveting TV show or a comfort show. I love cooking with nothing on. It's no music, no background noise. It's just me. Oftentimes I'm praying or I'm just thinking. And like it's trying to find those little tiny moments and making those tiny moments accrue to these really big, satisfactory feelings of, okay, even though life can be tough right now, or I may not be able to afford a trip to Switzerland, which I would love to do, how can I find joy in the little moments now? Because those are what make up most of our life. It's like the mundane. So it's
Mm-hmm.
trying to find living your best life at the capacity that you have it, and really finding out what brings you joy. And then when you can, do a Switzerland, when you can do other things. Because it's also good to get out of your comfort zone and experience new things as well as much as you're able to.
It's good.
So yeah, that's been helping me a lot,
Mm-hmm.
a lot.
I
That's so
love
good.
that, Valerie.
Mm-hmm.
One thing you both, Val and Rochelle, shared two things: being present and also enjoying the little things. My
Mm-hmm.
mom has been saying this thing a lot lately. She says, the days go by slowly, but the years go by fast,
Yes.
right? My parents had me fairly late in their lives. My mom had me at 40, my dad was 44. So my parents are older. And whenever people get around my family, they're like, "Whoa, your parents just move at a different pace." And I love that, right? And very similar to Valerie, I well, very too similar to what Valerie was sharing and what Rochelle has experienced. I now have a new position, and this position is going to be fully remote. This is my first time having a position like this, right?
Yay.
Praise God. I'm so excited.
Praise God.
And so the other day, in a strange, interesting turn of events, I had a really late event at the current job I'm at, which meant that I can go in a little bit later. And I felt like it was one of those rare opportunities that God was allowing me to see what my life is going to be like. And so I was able to take my son to school. And then my husband called me, and this is, wasn't the best scenario, but he called me and was like, "Babe, my battery just died out of nowhere." I'm like, "Don't worry. I'm not going into work until 11. I can go get you a battery." Dropped it off to him to work, went home, made breakfast for myself, enjoyed breakfast.
Oh,
It was so beautiful, right? And you notice not everything in that scenario was like a great day,
yeah.
but I was able to be present. I was able to be there for my family. That's the good life. Like, that
Mm-hmm.
is me living my
Yeah.
best life. I was available, I'm present, and I was just enjoying the day. And so, um, for me, it really, is about being intentional. There's a lot of intentionality
Mm-hmm.
that goes behind living our lives. And,
Mm-hmm.
I think, Leandra, you spoke to that, is realizing, okay, are you present? Are you enjoying life, right? Because, yes, there are a lot of challenges, there are a lot of obstacles we're going to face. But I think Rochelle touched on this. Oftentimes as humans, we can be faced with so many challenges all the time that when something that we've wanted for so long happens, we're almost
Yeah.
afraid to approach it, because it's like, man, like, is this really happening? Right?
Yeah.
Like, is this
Yeah.
is this am I going to get it, and then it's going to disappear? So there can oftentimes be this fear of like actually rejoicing.
Yes.
um but I think it's so important, because if we don't celebrate in those moments, if we just let them pass us by, we will get caught up in that grind. But
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with grinding, right? There's nothing wrong with doing the hard work. But if you can't enjoy the hard work, then what is it
Mm-hmm.
for? Like,
Right.
what was the purpose of it, if at the end of your life you're just, well, I worked and I worked. I didn't spend time with the people that I loved. I didn't enjoy it. For me, that is a sad life. You can
Mm-hmm.
have all the millions and
Yeah.
billions and trillions, but if two I think researchers ask people on their deathbeds, two what matters right now? Like, they were asking people on their deathbed two questions every single person asked on their deathbed: was I loved, and did I love well? Those are the two questions. People
Mm.
don't ask, was my house large enough? My 401k. No one in their right mind asks about money. No one in their right mind asks about things. Not saying that those things are important, because they often will translate into our relationships. But those are the two questions that people, if those are the two questions that people ask on their deathbed: was I loved, and did I love well? How are we using that to inform what success, what living the best life means
Mm-hmm.
to us?
Yeah.
And I also love the example, Jamie, that you gave, Rochelle, that you gave also. you were included on that list of people who you loved by making yourself a really
Mhm.
nice breakfast. I love me
Yeah.
making a protein coffee with my little syrups, sugar-free syrups, right? Because I have to work on my health. And every morning I'm like, okay, how am I going to make my coffee today? What am I going to have for breakfast? Right? Because I think as Black women specifically, there is such a pressure to worry about everything and
Yeah.
everybody else above
Yeah.
Right.
ourselves. It's
Yeah.
historic, it's social, it's occupational. Unfortunately, we are the most discriminated group. So
Mhm.
it's almost revolutionary for us to take care of ourselves, right? I'm not saying we neglect taking care of other people.
Mhm.
But somebody on TikTok, sorry, obviously you see I go on TikTok a lot. They're like, people pleasers.
But
Are you one of the people that you please? And I said, this
Wow.
is way too early for me to be slapped in the face, right? But I
that's a
think what
bind.
was beautiful was Jamie was able to take care of the things that she is responsible for, her husband and her
Yeah.
child, her job. But she also made sure she came home and was able to enjoy a really great breakfast. Rochelle was
Yes.
able to do a solo trip where it was just her. So even though it's awkward, it's like I could literally do whatever I want. If I want to stare at this mountain for 5 hours, I could sit in this mountain for 5 hours and not have to worry about the rest of the group getting bored, right? So
Yeah.
it's also, I think, revolutionary success for especially Black women or people, women of color, but Black women specifically, since we're all Black women, is are you part of that list of people you loved?
Yeah.
Like
Mm.
genuinely love, not like you get manicures, get your hair done, even though I know that's a part of it, but do you
Mhm.
genuinely find yourself appreciating, nurturing, and loving who you are and
Yes.
whatever that can look like that game changer as well. So just
Mm.
wanted to highlight
Well,
that.
well
Yeah,
said.
So
so
good.
good. And so just with going back to the question, I think we answered the question and we rephrased the question, which is actually a cool thing. So the question
Mhm.
was, is there any good sides, positives to living your
All
best
right.
life? But but I think we rephrased it and said, yes, there are positive sides when you live your best life these ways. And the things
Mhm.
that we talked about were taking advantage of opportunities that have been given to us, being present in this present moment, even if we may not have everything that we want to have, being present. I mean,
Mhm.
Right.
I've shared my miscarriage journey. It's very easy for me to be like,
Mhm.
oh, I wish when I can just, like you mentioned, Rochelle, I can just get up, go to the stove. I don't got to worry about who's going to take care of the kid.
Yeah.
There are things that I can be present and uh, grateful for, but hopeful for the future.
Mhm.
We also talked about challenging yourself. So being able to say yes to the things that might be scary, that is part of living your best life. If it's gonna,
Mhm.
scary and like moving yourself forward in that type of way, not going to a haunted
Yeah.
house type of thing, but saying yes to things that will challenge you.
Mhm.
Gratitude, being joyful around just this present moment. And again, I may not have all the things that I want to have, but there's so much to be grateful for. I am alive. I am
Mhm.
mobile. I can, whatever that might mean for you. Um, and then I also want to add this one, and this last one is something that I've actually been sitting on because it's
Mhm.
been something that's been weighing on my heart is believing that where I am is where I'm supposed to be. And a lot of
Mhm.
times I feel as if, man, I wish I would have did blank so that I can be further ahead. Or man, I wish maybe if I did this thing, I would have been here. And I really have to sit in the fact that where I am is where I'm supposed to be. Granted, side note, preface, making sure you're doing all the right things you're supposed to be doing. Because if you're going off track, you're probably not where you're supposed to be. If you're doing all things you're not supposed to do. But if you have been committed, dedicated, focused on your goals, your family, yourself, at the end of the day, believing where I am is where I'm supposed to be. And if that is true, then I am living my best life in this moment, essentially. So again, I think we've rephrased it to be, yes, live your best life if you are doing those things. And if you're doing those
Mhm.
things, you're living your best life right now. It's not anything that
Hmm.
you have to run towards or pursue, or maybe I'll get there when I have more money. You can
Mhm.
absolutely live your best life right now.
100%.
Yes.
That's huge, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
um, as we end this, because we can keep talking, but I want to be mindful of people that are listening, right? As we just wrap up, I do want to talk about just our friendship and how
Mhm.
has living our best life and all the things we defined that to be, how has our friendship helped us stay grounded in what really matters and in being God-centered as well?
I'm just jumping on this. I like instant when you said that, like tears started to well up in my eyes. Just so crazy.
Me too.
But it was because it's like, I think in my, as I grow older, realizing how hard true friendship is, like good friends. Um,
Mm,
I've really valued that we still connect, that over text or over calls or over lunch, sometimes in person or different things, or on the drive homes to work, like in the daily, because it is hard to find good
yeah,
friends. That's another
Yeah.
episode in totality.
It's true.
But even if we're like, we're far away, we're all living in different areas. But it is such a joy to have friends that have known you for over a decade and have seen the changes. And I don't know. This is part of living 100% your best life, is to have people in your life. They may not be beside you, which is the hard part, right? Like you have to
mhm,
also build your around. I think me and Jamie were talking about that a while ago. It's like it's hard to have in so many seasons when you've built friends, but then you leave. You've been different places, so your
yeah,
friends have either moved away or you've moved away, and so that can be hard. But still, to have this connection is such a big part, because I think they talk about our generation being one of the loneliest generations, and
mm,
so I value this because I, one, understand how hard it is to find good friends that are
Yeah.
good for you too.
yeah,
And so I think that I'm thankful, and I'm thankful that for this group of women who are just so inspiring to me. You guys are all pursuing your best life. You are all like pushing yourself to your limit, and not in a bad way, but like in a, hey, I'm gonna challenge myself, where we go into deep
mhm.
conversations, and I love that. So anyways, that just, I just want to react to that. I don't even think I heard the full question, but I, this is part of my best life. I'm sorry. But the tears, I was like, wow, Lord, I love them. So
Well, I mean, you answered it, so.
yeah, cool. But
Very, very similarly to Rochelle. Like as soon as you asked that question, like I started feeling like emotional, because I am an emotional, person. But you all are absolutely a part of me living my best life. God has blessed me with not only good friends, but amazing friends.
Mm,
You all are women who, as Rochelle said, love God, are authentic and genuine, and always open and willing to push yourself beyond, like, just your current mindset. You all ask me great questions, you hold me accountable, you challenge me in every season of my life, and every season all of you have been like, I see what you're saying, girl, but have you considered, or have you seen it from his perspective, or have you, and that's what we need. You all are laughing because you're like, I remember that conversation. So I'm just so thankful. And very similar to what Valerie said, you walking in your lane has made me a better person. You walking in
oh,
your
that's
lane,
good.
you being authentic to
that is
who God
very
has called you to be. So whoever is listening, think about that, right? You walking in your authentic self will not only, benefit you, it will benefit those around you, and will contribute to you living your best life. And
good.
so just thank you to every single one of you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, that's such an interesting question because I was talking to Jamie about this as well, literally yesterday, about like being up here. And it's not to say I haven't made really great connections with people,
Mm.
right? Like there are people up here that if we needed help, if I needed support, they would be here. But most of my closest deep relationships, all of y'all are either in Florida, Detroit. Nope, that's it, essentially. So for me, it's been interesting, like what Jamie's saying about being in my lane and realizing, okay, there are some people that I would love to be friends with, right? Because, like I said, I'm an extrovert. Like, I'm a true extrovert. I love connecting with people. Um, but it made me learn to treasure the friendships that actually really, 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 really matter and have become such a core part of who I am. Like, I tell all of my friends, if you guys weren't in my life, I wouldn't be the person I am today. Guaranteed 100%. I would not. Um, I think, um, what was I going to say? I lost it. I lost
Friends.
it. But essentially, what I want to encourage too is, Rochelle said this is the loneliest generation. It is hard to be vulnerable. It is hard to make new friends. It is hard to connect with people, especially if you've been hurt a lot. by relationships, been traumatized by relationships, especially in childhood. So I often want to also challenge people like, yes, you do want to make friends that you connect with, that you guys,
Mhm.
similar temperament, similar interest, but please be open to friends who also challenge the way that you think.
Mm-hmm.
They may not always agree with how you may perceive a certain situation. It may challenge your mindset or the way that you're thinking or feeling about a certain situation. I always say find the balance of people who validate your humanity, but are also willing to love you enough to challenge you to be better and be
Right.
more of who you can grow to become. So I know for me that's been a huge proponent as to why my closest friend are my closest friends. Like they all have challenged me beyond
Mm.
what I might have liked in the moment, but looking back,
Mm-hmm.
it's made me such a much better person. So I challenge people because everybody also is like, if they're not with you, cut them off. Like, that's a huge thing, cutting people off, cancel culture, all of that different stuff. Like, no, the
Mhm.
people who challenge you and validate your humanity at the same time, keep those people. You need those people.
Yeah.
I think the Bible says
Mm-hmm.
a wound from a friend is better than a compliment from an enemy. I'm
Yeah.
paraphrasing, so sorry, Lord, but it's true. So I
Yeah.
think success can heavily be defined. Living your best life can definitely be heavily impacted by the relationships that you have, friendships very specifically, because those kind of last through your lifetime. Even before you get married, before you have kids, friends are always there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Amen.
so, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you all have been amazing friends, aka sisters, and I have three brothers biologically, no sisters. So having women like you all in my life has definitely impacted me, and I think we had a lot more time together when we were in college. That was one part of the chapter of our lives, and then as we've gotten grown into adults, even though I don't always feel like an adult. And I'm like, what's happening in my life? Why do I have to do all these things? But even looking at your examples, as Jamie mentioned, by watching you walk in your lane, it's an example for me and an encouragement for me. And so I appreciate you all. And just for living your best life, it's just looking at, I think, one another and thinking about not so much how are we competing, that's not what we're saying, but more so how can we encourage one another? How can we inspire one another? Wow, Rochelle just went to Switzerland. Now we all want to go to Switzerland.
We'll do a girls trip. We'll do a girls
That's
trip.
right.
Right? So it's like, wow, you did that? Okay, that gives me motivation and encouragement to know that I can do that too. So definitely with friendships, I think it's make sure that, they say birds of the same feather flock together. So kind of making sure you have the same mindset and the kind of same goals. You live in different lives, but the same goals, and that will support. Also being intentional. We don't live, well, I mean, Jamie and I are in the same state, but we're like an hour and a half away. So that's like another state, essentially. But we all live in different states. And I think being intentional has allowed all of our friendships to stay strong and having conversations. And then we also have a prayer group together as well,
Mhm.
where we pray with one another, which we need to set that up, do another session.
Amen. Facts.
Uh, but ultimately, as we end and wrap up, any just quick last reflections, learnings you want to give to the listeners, encouragement, any quick things before we go?
I was gonna just say it's you guys have said it throughout the podcast, but take inventory of your life and be grateful for what you have,
Mm,
because we often are too late to be grateful for things once they're gone. So just take inventory
it's
and be
true.
grateful.
Mm.
Hmm. Not every relationship and friendship is going to be the same.
Hmm.
So it's important to learn who is in what category. Because, like I said, most of my closest friends are in Florida, but I also have like good friends, shawties, we call ourselves that lived in other places. And it's not to say like there's any hierarchy per se, right? There's just certain things, certain friends, you can talk to about specific things and you relate to that way and you're able to talk here and there, but you're still pretty close. They're the ones that you call every week, every other day, and different seasons call for different friendships that you may need. So I think, again, success, and I guess I'll speak friendship specifically, be flexible, be open minded, but be willing to put your best foot forward in order to see the potential of what you have, who you have with you throughout this journey. And if they stick longer than a decade, then consider yourself blessed. And if you're new to the journey of creating great friendships, be open to people who are willing to take the leap with you.
It's good.
Really
Yeah.
good. I would say be very careful with comparison.
Hmm.
Um, we kind of uh just touched on that topic, but not everything that glitters is gold, not everything that shines is
Yeah.
a diamond, okay?
No.
So just be very careful with comparison, and I think we all touched upon this. I really want to encourage each and every single person listening to identify what is truly living my best life to me. I
Yeah.
love that Leandria brought up that she spoke to
Mhm.
that woman. She was like, going to the beach and not having anybody call me, being able to
Mhm.
afford what I want to afford, being able to eat what I want to eat, and being okay with that, right? And having
Hmm.
no problem with saying, like, having my own business is living my best
Yeah.
life. Amen. That's beautiful too, but really not doing it from a place of comparison and
Hmm.
competition.
Mhm.
I think one
Yes.
thing that I can say about each and every single one of these ladies, they've never made me feel like, oh, you're not doing enough, you got to compete,
Mhm.
and I know a lot of women who have those type of relationships and struggle,
Mhm.
and I'm
Mhm.
very fortunate to say I don't have that. I have women who are going to push me to be the best version of myself and recognize we each have our own lanes, and oftentimes they converge, like moments
Yeah.
like right now, but you all have pushed me to be the best version of myself. So I want to thank you. So anyone who's listening is like, well, I don't have friends like that. I always feel like I'm competing with my friends. I hope that you listen to what Valerie said very closely. Maybe you might have to go back and rewind and listen and, identify, okay, why am I attracting those people? Why am I
Yeah.
attracting those types of individuals? Is there something about me? And,
Mhm.
what can I do to start really, befriending authentic people who are going to challenge me and also validate my humanity?
Absolutely. Yeah, I want to talk about comparison more, but I also know the time is ticking. So I
Yes.
want to be mindful. But yeah, comparison is a big thing. I struggle with comparison a lot. And
Mhm.
a lot of things
Me too.
looking in
Same.
the past I've literally only did those things because I felt like I had to keep up, or I felt
Right.
like
Mhm.
I'm not good enough unless I do this thing. And it's because
Yep.
I'm comparing myself to others around me. And so it
Mhm.
is, talk about draining yourself, such a place to
Yeah.
be draining yourself, where you are living the life, but you are so unhappy. Not
Mhm.
so anyway, we can go, there's another topic. But I do have another episode about that comparison. Check out my other episode. I'll put
Yeah.
in the chat or the message
The show
description
notes.
show notes, right? But ultimately, I appreciate you all being here today. And the last thing I would leave is, yes, evaluate, what does living your best life mean to you? Like if you were to sit down and write down those things, write it out. And if you feel like, man, what I'm writing feels so superficial, like really sit and evaluate, what does this look like for me? And if you can't figure it out, just live for a week. Just go throughout your day for a
Mhm.
week and just kind of collect those moments where you feel the happiest, when you feel the most peace, the most joy, and be able to
Mhm.
write those things down and say, wow, like those are the things that make me feel the happiest. This is living my best life. Because you only live one life, right? And you want to live it the best, but do it in a way that fits you. Um, so we appreciate you all listening today. And if you want to hear more from these wonderful women, comment, like, subscribe, tell us other topics you want to talk about, because they will come back. I didn't tell y'all this, but y'all gonna come back for another
Yes.
another episode in the future. We'll
Yay.
definitely do that.
Absolutely.
And
Mhm.
if you like just this episode or the others, please like, subscribe, comment. And as we end, I just want you all to shout out your businesses, things that you're doing, anything you want the people to know so they can connect with you, social media, Instagram, anything you want the people to know or connect you with.
So I'll go. As I shared, we have a production agency, so we can do videos and photos for your business. Our business is Elway Studios, so you can find us on all social platforms. And I also have a a business, Color Me Right, where you can purchase journals and bags and totes and other things that represent you, right? Beautiful melanin. So check it out on Etsy.
Love it.
I thought you were gonna go right after Val, but I'll say I'm writing a blog. I really am gonna share it this week. I'll put it on my Instagram. So my Instagram is rantoine23. And then I also have like a page called Rochelle's Voice. So I'll be starting to rev that up a little bit when it gets warmer. But I think those three things you'll probably find most of it's on my Instagram. But Rochelle's Voice, the blog should be on there soon. It's just really talking about grief and how to let go of things and kind of, to Leandria's point, and just flow and walk in the freedom you're made to be. So yeah.
Yeah, I would shout out my Instagram, but because I struggle with comparison as well, I'm trying to stay off of Instagram. But like I said, I have the honor and privilege of founding an organization called the Job Project, which is named after the biblical person in the Bible, Job, where we bring mental health and faith resources to people. So if you want to follow us on Instagram, at the Job Project, Job is spelled like job, project.co. Yeah, you can find us there. We have events, we have worship night coming up, we do workshops, consultations. I'm also a biblical counselor, so if you're interested in getting coaching, but like from a mental health faith-based lens, I also provide that too. But if you follow us at the Job Project and DM us for any inquiries, we'll get back to you. So yeah.
Wonderful. And we hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Freedom and Flow podcast. If you want to, I'm a coach, life coach, career strategist. So if you want to talk about what does living your best life look like for you, more than happy to do a discovery session with you. You can find the link in the description, show notes below. And overall, we encourage you to live in freedom, let go of the things that do not serve you, hold on to the things that do, live in flow. Life won't always go the way that we want it to be, but there's so much gratitude and joy we can find in this present moment. And embrace your purpose. So really finding and aligning to things that feed you joy, but also can encourage the world and others around you. All right, this is the Freedom and Flow podcast. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.